Well, is it time for us to consider a currency board, for instance, or is too extreme?
I think that, as Dr. Chumesi has also said, I think these are demand-supply issues, right?
Okay.
If you look at the cedi over the years, you realize that the cedi gives testimony to good policies. The cedi just doesn't misbehave on its own.
Okay.
So having a currency board, would that be a substitute for doing the right thing in shaping the fundamentals? And I'm sure our vice president gave one of the beautiful lectures those days that when in doubt, check the exchange rate. Is that okay? So to some extent, if you want to highlight the theoretical benefit of having that, I think where we find ourselves here, in fact, and I will tell you this, from the beginning of the year, you could see price pressures building up. Then we started raising the alarm. In fact, if you look at Ghana Statistical Service, Professor
Enim,
anytime he's giving the inflation numbers, he goes down. He tells you where the causes are. He tells you imported inflation. He tells you local food inflation. About 44% of that is within our control. So when you see food inflation rising that way, to blame Russia, Ukraine, it would amount to weeping more than the bereaved, right? And why are we saying so? Ghana spends more than $400 million importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso. And you are looking at your steady stabilizing. Ghana has comparative advantage over Burkina Faso. But you see what is happening. Burkina Faso is creating competitive advantage, and that is undoing our comparative advantage, right? So those are the things you want to see. Then the reason we said that inflation will remain elevated towards the end of the year. If you look at this country, July, August, harvest season. So when you see inflation for July going up, inflation for August going up, then you know you are in trouble. It's always harder using monetary policy to fight inflation under weak fiscal regime and elevated public debt. And that is why Dr. Tio Achampong was saying that there's a limit to look to Bank of Ghana in addressing this situation. The source of our macroeconomic instability is physical. Right from independence, it's been physical. How do we address that immediately? You know, one of the things I'm looking forward to sleeping and waking up to one day is when the president takes a decision and says that, guys, enough. I'm downsizing. I'm reducing the number of ministers to about 40. I'm taking the risk, right? I'm doing this as a signal that I'm internalizing the austerity that is coming. I want on that platform, you can come to Ghana and say, come on board. We must come out of this together. Leadership matters. And that is what we need to do now. And I'll tell you one more thing. You know, anytime we are outside an IMF program, the fund, the development partners, they are a bit lenient with their comments, more diplomatic. But when you come under a program, you've lost your bargaining power. So you see how they are coming hard at us now. They are asking you to prove this.
Show proof, yeah.
So last year you were not under any program, so they could understand your assumptions. You can explain that, oh, how about this debt? Oh, you know, this is ring-fenced, this is that, this is this is that. But right now, they are saying everything must come on board. So especially when you check in such a vulnerable state, you don't have, you can't negotiate from position of strength. We shouldn't have gotten ourselves in this place. To come out of this, as I said, what the market is looking for is that bold decision from the government that says that, look, and it may have to be a bit radical, which means that you are sacrificing your interest and the interest of your inner core and your political party for the common good. Other than that, if you tell me that these people have performed excellently, then probably it will be for reasons not for the common good. Reasons best known to you. The market wants action right now. Now, part of the challenge I see from the part of government may be, how do we communicate this? Okay, it's because there's one of the things that COVID did was to weaken trust in government and government institutions, right? Because of how some countries responded to all of that. And if you see over a period since 1992, you could see that the extent to which the democratic dividend trickles down to the ordinary Ghanaian is smaller, and it doesn't get to them anymore. So when it happens that way, there's some kind of trust gap between the citizens and the government. And that is why you may find probably that the government may have to reach out to some credible people in society, either from the clergy or so, to play some kind of mediating role, right, in bringing us together. Because to some extent, if the government says X, people will choose Y. And the rest of them. So we need that the president needs to take certain action in order to bring all of us to the table, so that we can say that, oh, we can trust you. I mean, Jesus said, trust me. When you lose your life, you take it again. And he led by the way, right? So we need, once that is missing, it's going to be difficult. And I can tell you, the 2023 budget will mirror in character what is likely to be agreed. But the question also is, how do you communicate that? You also need to test the acceptability, stakeholder reaction, and all of that. And I think at this stage,
this should have started by now.
Yeah, this should give us the opportunity to bury our political differences between the main opposition party and the government. Because you see, you are going into a program that will transcend this regime. I'm not saying there will be a regime change, right? So, given that there's a possibility. So, you need a certain minimum stakeholder acceptability, okay? And that is not just organized labor. That also would require reaching a hand of fellowship to the opposition party, the major opposition party, because in this country, maybe you will give us the data, right? Regardless of who the parties put forward, a certain minimum voting is assured. And the rest also, they have a voice, very strong in all of that. So we need to reach out. The two main political, even the smaller ones, reach out to the various key stakeholders in a manner that brings us to the table. We recognize we have a common problem. To solve this, we need to bury our differences, because when we win together.
Okay. Well, Professor Jampo will take us on a break, but I'm sure he's calm now in terms of your...
Because he will not buy dollars.
Well, I think I associate myself with many of the things that he said, particularly in the area of downsize in government. This was a research I did somewhere in 2009, Ministerial Appointment and Government Expenditure in Ghana's Fourth Republic, with a colleague, Anam Zoya. And you look at how much it costs to hire one minister, and the kinds of things that go with hiring
and everything.
And I mean, so within a crisis period, one of the things that you can do to signal to all that you are serious and you want to lead by example and you want all of us to be brought on board is to downsize. You can't have this number of ministers, all of them riding in V8 vehicles and drawing free fuel. They have V8s, they have saloon cars, free electricity, free water, telephone, clothing allowance, and all manner of things, chauffeur-driven, garden boy, cooks, and all those things that go with appointment of one minister. You cannot continue to have them in place while you tell us to tighten our belt. And that's why it is difficult for labor to agree with government when it is called upon to tighten its belt. Because you cannot ask us to tighten your belt whilst you have eaten, your tummy has blossomed, and you've loosened yours. It's not possible. And so you should lead by example. And one sure way to tell us that you are willing to bring us all on board and to lead by example is to cut down the number of ministers that you have. If they are not willing to do so, then I wonder how best they will be able to communicate to Ghanaians that, look, we should all come on board and help in sailing ourselves or navigating ourselves, through this challenge.
Okay, let's take a quick break here on Newsfile. Then we can have the final lap. We'll talk about the IMF asking us to show debt sustainability proof, amongst others, and beyond the IMF, what happens? Do we have a plan? That and more coming up shortly. Please stay with us.